We're going to get started with our idea today. And what this is again, I'm Ben, and I am a special ed and elementary ed major, and something that really sparks my interest is this idea of how best to educate students with special needs. And so our title of today's seminar is For the Love of Everyone, and we're going to be talking about least restrictive environment, we're going to be talking about inclusion, and we're going to be talking about universal design. So let's get started. And education for everyone is the title of my thing. And I mean everyone. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, and like I said, what we're going to be going over is we're going to start with examining primary principles of LRE, or least restrictive environment, by law, and then inclusion by definition. We're going to identify the discrepancy between the two conflicting pedagogies. These are two ideas that don't really sit well with each other. They're on opposite sides of the fence. We're going to discuss what universal design for learning is and how it's the middle ground between these two ideas. And we're also going to identify how it is that middle ground, so how it appeals to both the academic and social sides of school. And then finally, we're going to discuss how universal design for learning, or UDL, provides a framework for a working curriculum, and it benefits all learners. So let's get started. Again, we're going to start by examining least restrictive environment and inclusion. And so this is least restrictive environment. This is the law that it's a part of. It's part of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and it's section 300.550. And this is the actual law. That to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities, including children in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with children who are non-disabled. This is the actual law. So just take that in. To the maximum extent appropriate, students are educated with children who are non-disabled. It goes even further, saying that special classes, separate schooling, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular educational environment occurs only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. So the only way that a child is removed from the general education environment is if their needs aren't being met with aids and supplementary services in a general education classroom. Talking about placement, so actually getting them into a self-contained classroom, so a classroom with just special ed students, or a classroom with typical students in general education. This is very important. Section E of this talks about a child with a disability is not removed from an education in an age-appropriate regular classroom solely because of needed modifications to the general curriculum. So this idea, just bringing it back up to the top, to the maximum extent appropriate, the IDEA Law 2004 also talks about free and appropriate public education. And so let's identify what appropriate means, break that down a little bit more. It's defined as a stimulating social environment with academically rigorous content material. So both stimulating the child socially and providing them with appropriate material to access and gain academics in. And so summing all of this up, because it's a lot of legal jargon, let's do that. The main aspects of least restrictive environment. By law, a child can utilize aids and services in the general ed classroom. So by law, you can have an aid and you can have your related services such as physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists in the classroom with the child. And the modification of the general curriculum cannot be the reason that a child is removed from a general education classroom. Again, that's by law. That's what it talks about. Talking about inclusion, there's no legal definition of inclusion. Inclusion is the idea that students with disabilities should be included in all aspects of the general education classroom. So not only like going to PE or going to music or the library time with them, but actually in the classroom doing all of the academic content with the class. But there's no legal definition, like I said. And so this is the actual definition of what inclusion is. The action or state of including or of being included with a group or structure. And that's from Merriam-Webster. So what that means is the word inclusion carries this kind of social connotation, being included with a group, in a group setting, in a group structure, right? And so this primarily focuses on the social stimulation that a child needs. And it fails to address the academic focus. Ooh. But the idea behind this is inclusion is that a student needs to only show that they aren't losing anything from being in this environment. In least restrictive environment, traditionally it was called mainstreaming. That was like the first idea of least restrictive environment. And what that was is that a child, if they could show that they were benefiting from the environment that they were in, they were allowed to stay. And if they were not just showing a positive growth, but remaining neutral or losing from that environment, they would be pulled from it. This one says that they don't need to show any positive growth. They just need to show that they aren't having any negative effects coming into the classroom. So again, primarily social. And then both of these ideas are correct. And you're like, what? Oh, what do you mean? They're both correct. How can they both be correct, right? The idea that a student, any student, needs a socially stimulating environment and an educationally and academically rigorous environment are both positives. Those are awesome. The unfortunate thing is that least restrictive environment only focuses on academics and inclusion solely focuses on social. And so how do you combine the two? And that's the question. The question is, how do we provide a stimulating social environment while also challenging each student academically? And that's where Universal Design for Learning comes in. So for those of you who don't know, Universal Design for Learning is an approach to structuring your day, structuring the lesson, structuring your classroom, so that every student feels welcome and it's appropriate for them to utilize their services. So an approach to learning that focuses on educating every child in the same environment. And that's educating every child and also the same environment are important there. The 3 principles of universal design are pretty easy. The first one, multiple means of representation. And when I say easy, I mean easy in the idea of them, not easy in the implementation of them. What multiple means of representation is, for those of you who don't know, being able to represent the content in a variety of ways. And so when we're talking about strictly students with special needs, being able to represent the content textually so they can visually read it, being able to represent it auditorily so they can hear it, being able to put it on the internet so they can access it away from just the classroom, stuff like that if they need more time. So multiple means of being able to represent the same material. The idea of multiple means of expression is the second principle. And expression is child-centered. So if you think representation is what the educator does, expression is what the child does. What are you asking the child to do? Right? What's the skill you want them to accomplish? If the skill is spelling, how can they spell? Can they spell on a computer? Yeah. Can they spell pencil and paper? Yeah. Can they show you spelling through some sort of art? Yeah, go for it. Anything that the child can do, expression is like the most broad thing. However the child can show you that they have gained the knowledge that you want them to gain, whatever way they express it is fine by us in universal design. And the last one is multiple means of engagement. How are you engaging the child, right? Universal design was born out of this idea that the cookie cutter mentality doesn't work for every child. Every child's different, right? We'd all agree on that, I think. Every child is different. And so multiple means of engagement, how are you going to engage all these different children? If somebody, learns best by providing a PowerPoint and listening to a lecture, then you can do that. But what if the child that is sitting next to them or across from them doesn't learn that way? They have to provide, printout of it and stuff like that. Multiple means of engagement is also geared towards teaching strategies. So how do you engage the child who likes working as an individual? How do you engage the child who needs a group environment to succeed? Stuff like that. And these are all important factors in thinking about how you're going to structure your classroom so that they're effective for all children. So again, combining least restrictive environment. I told you we would and how UDL meets it. This is how. Inclusion is the idea that it keeps the child in an environment that appeals to the social stimulation, right? And then how we're going to do that with universal design is that they're all in the same environment. They're all in the one classroom. And how you keep them all in that one classroom, that socially stimulating environment, is by this. All students are challenged academically at the same time, and that's through providing multiple means of representation as an educator, multiple means of expression for the students, and multiple means of engagement for the students. So universal design for learning, how can we apply it more than just lesson by lesson? When I learned about universal design, I had to do one lesson plan. And it was like, how do you make this lesson plan universally designed, right? And so I thought about it broader. How do you make your curriculum universally designed? And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today, or discuss with you guys today. How do we broaden that spectrum? So with students with disabilities, that's what universal design was created for. How do we broaden that for students who don't fit the mainstream culture, right? How do we engage all learners when they come from culturally different backgrounds, ethnically different backgrounds, when they don't identify with the same sexual orientation as the dominant culture, or the same gender, stuff like that. And can we apply these concepts, the three principles of universal design, when we're thinking about curriculum as a whole? And what does that look like? So my question to all of you today that we can use as a jumping point to start is, how can we create this curriculum that's inclusive to all students and identifies their culture, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, race, and is responsive to those things? Like, if we know that a child is secluded because of their ethnicity, how do we bring them back into our classroom when the curriculum that we're given doesn't address their ethnicity at all, or their culture at all? Or it only paints the picture through the U.S.'s eyes instead of their home culture's eyes. And then should this be a thing that we do? And then what does it look like? So that is it, an education for everyone. And I hope you guys have an idea of what we would like to talk about. Oh, thanks. Sorry. All right, that's not necessary, really.